let's talk a little bit about how they form in the first place, right? I think the biggest reason that I see why a silo starts is that there's not a shared vision. We don't know where we're going. We don't know what our shared goals are, what moves the needle for our company as a whole. And so because of that, each person inside of the company finds their own goal. They see the business and their role as a specific, in a specific way. And so they focus on that. And so then you get all these different focuses that aren't shared. And so because everyone's focused on a different destination, a different primary or priority for their role, and they don't see how they connect to each other, they create a silo. And that silo is optimizing for what that person is focused on. And because they're not connected, that's how you get a lot of silos. I think another one is just connection. There's not enough connecting points. The person that runs the front desk never sees the person that's out in the field. The person in accounting never talks to somebody that's in marketing. There's never a team meeting. There's never opportunities for people to connect. And so those silos never have opportunities to share information, to even know who each other are and how they operate.
Tell you one of the classics, and we're more contractors and manufacturers, but one of the classics, and it was even there in Caterpillar, an organization, engineers versus sales guys.
Yes.
Sales guys out in the field and say, "Hey, man, people want this," and the engineer says, "You don't know what you're asking for," And one of the things I heard quoted all the time was, "Can't you just, like a salesman, can't you just make that 6 inches wider?"
Yeah.
Well, engineer, yes, I can. You just modified 450 parts. Can't
Yeah.
you just, right? That shows that lack of understanding of,
Well,
don't understand what engineers don't understand what the salespeople got to go through, and the salespeople don't know what the engineers got to go through.
Well, I think a big one that happens, it's very similar, but on the contractor level, especially the smaller contractor level, this happens, the sales is typically done by the owner in many respects, and they're trying to please the customer. They're always thinking of ways that they can add value. And you have that great quote that I love, that you can't add value, you can only add cost.
Right.
And what they do is they start promising, value to the customer. But then for the team that's actually executing on that, a lot of times that value is something they've never done before. It's this new thing that's just greater and better than what they did in the past. And there's a lot of headache that comes with that, and you can't standardize. And so there's kind of this silo between the owner and the team that's out in the field actually doing the work. We'll go back to some examples out in a second. I think another one, and kind of goes into this, but in delegation, or really abdication, like you talk about, where you just say, well, take care of it. Like, you're responsible for that. You take care of it. And you don't really follow up. You don't really understand what's going on. You're not really giving them clear instructions or a clear vision of what you want to be done. You haven't defined what the key result and outcome is when you delegate something. When you've abdicated, you're creating silos because you don't know what's really happening. And so whoever's doing it is the one that has the knowledge of it. But because you're not following up, because you haven't given clarity, they're creating a silo, and then you're on the other side of it. And with that, I think another way that silos stay intact and don't, they're built, but they really just grow from there, is a lack of evaluation. Not going back and evaluating a job and how it went, not evaluating your employees on an annual basis or maybe semi-annual basis, not having one-on-ones with your employees. If you're not having that connection point and revisiting and reflecting on the work that's being done, you're unable to see the silos. And so they just continue to build from there. So those are my 4 things that I think about and why silos exist and how they're created. So in terms of, why is this, an important thing to break down, I think it causes a lack of efficiency inside of a business. You're unable to be as efficient as possible because you're not on the same page. And so, I mean, how many times is there are we going back to the job site to do something that we forgot about? Are we, not having the right price on a project because we didn't understand what was actually happening? We didn't have the materials on site because we didn't communicate correctly with the supplier, with the person on the ground. Um, yeah. Uh, what are some
Well,
of the things? Go ahead.
it's at a global scale, but the number one reason people leave jobs, 53%, is unclear expectations.
Yeah.
Okay. And when you have silos, that's what you're building into is unclear expectation. Assuming goodwill by people, sometimes silos are formed with not goodwill, in which case
Yeah.
you have a culture problem, you need to ferret out the problem. But a lot of times if people don't clearly understand what is expected of them, you can't hold them accountable for not doing it because
Yeah.
people generally are trying to do the best they can. And those silo walls, whatever caused the partition, different operation, different department in the company, different locations, that's where the opportunity arises that there are unclear expectations.